Creative Commons license, of course, that means that you can reuse all the footage and the sound and all that kind of thing, all the music, as you like. So there you go. So that's the basics of Creative Commons. Let's have a look at them in a bit more detail and how it actually works. So what it is, as I keep saying, set of licenses. These licenses are standardised, which means that there's only 6 licenses and they're exactly the same everywhere in the world. There are, and there's only those 6. Or actually, no. There's only 6 core licenses, and then there's a few other ones, which people sometimes use, sampling licenses and public domain licenses and things like that. But there's 6 main ones, and they're the ones that you'll see most of the time. And they're standardised, as I said, and the whole point about that is not only to make it easy for people to use. Like, imagine if, like at the moment, you can do exactly what Creative Commons is doing on your own website just by writing your own license. So you can put a notice on your website that says you can use my material in these ways and this kind of thing. But every single person would have to learn every single time a new license, basically. So you go to a new website, you have to see what that license says, work out exactly what it means, and all that kind of thing. The idea of Creative Commons, they're standardised. So the moment once you're familiar with the system, then you see it's one of these 6 licenses, and you can know instantly how you can use stuff. So that's one of the benefits of standardisation, just recognition and people understanding how they can use it and all that kind of thing. And the other big benefit is that there's problems with remixing material under different licenses. If one license says that you have to do X with the material and the other license says you have to do Y with it, and you try to put them into the same video, and if X and Y conflict, then you can't do that. Like, basically those 2 bits of material are incompatible because you can't do both X and Y with your video. And there's a lot of problems with that once you get to the technicalities of copyright law and stuff. So that's another reason why we keep the standardised licenses, is try to keep one big pool of material that you can just move back and forth between each other. So you don't have to worry too much about incompatibility. Now, some material in the Creative Commons pool will actually be incompatible with each other, and I'll show you why in a second. But so you still have to check exactly what the license says and always make sure that you're following what it says to make sure that you got it right. But it's actually really simple once you start doing it. Like I said, there's 6 licenses, and they're all very similar to each other, as you'll see in a moment. So they're all designed to facilitate sharing. So all of them are looser than copyright law, like I was saying. The absolute minimum freedom is that you can redistribute stuff. You can redistribute the work for non-commercial purposes as long as you don't change it. That's the tightest Creative Commons license, the one that you can do the least with. We basically call that the advertising license because that's the kind of thing that people put, if they just want to advertise things. They want as many people as possible to see this song, but they don't want it to be remixed, and they don't want Coke putting it in an ad, without paying them. And a lot of Hollywood films, for instance, are starting to put their licenses out under, their previews, out under these things, because that's the whole point of a preview. It's an ad. So you want as many people as possible to see it, so you want them to be able to send it around. But they may be a little bit worried that people might, criticise their film if they can remix. They might do weird things with it and that kind of thing. So they're all designed to facilitate sharing, and they go from really tight to really loose. But they're all looser than normal copyright law. They're flexible. So there are 6 different ones. You don't have to, it's not all or nothing. That's where Creative Commons differs from the open source movement. If anybody's a geek, they'll have heard of open source software, Linux, Firefox, all those kind of things. And Creative Commons blatantly stole our ideas from them. We will never try to claim otherwise. They came up with this whole permission in advance thing before us. And we just applied it. They were doing it for computer software. And we said, why can't we do this for everything else? Music, films, photos, scripts, etc., etc. And so we were really, would never claim that we didn't steal their idea. But we were also trying to do it for a much broader group of materials and users. So they were basically talking about, just software code and wanting to share it with, a community of software programmers and stuff. It's broader now, it's open source really, but where it came from originally. So they just have the one license. And, well, there are several different licenses, but most of those licenses just have a single system, a single license that works for them. But we decided that it should be more flexible. Some people might want to allow commercial use, but some people might not, and that kind of thing. So we've got a little bit more flexibility. As I've said, they're all easy to use and understand. We'll talk in a second about the different things they've got that make them easy to use and understand, but there's all kinds of tricky tools that do that specifically, and they all apply the same way anywhere in the world. You might see that Creative Commons licenses, a lot of them have a country jurisdiction written next to them, and if you go to actually license your material, you'll be asked which jurisdiction license you want to use, so which country you're in. And the reason for that is because each country does have its own license. Well, not each country, there's about 40 countries or so that have their own licenses, versions of each of these 6 licenses. And now all those versions are meant to be exactly the same. So it doesn't matter which country you're using stuff from, it doesn't matter which country you're using stuff in, it should all be fine. All the licenses mean exactly the same thing, and they have exactly the same effect. The only reason why there's different countries ones is that if you are putting, say, a license on your material and you're an Australian creator, it'll be much easier for you to sue somebody for breaching it in an Australian court. And so the licenses are written to make sure that Australia is the default country that you go to, and you don't have to jump through as many hoops. Because if you have a US license on your material, the Australian court could, in theory, say that they're not willing to apply Australian law. So it's just good for you to have an Australian license if it's your stuff, but it's not necessary. It's just a useful thing. That's just one thing that people sometimes get confused about. Don't worry about the countries, but they are a useful thing to do. So some of the things that CC is not. And these are very important because these are things you also might hear out there. CC is not anti-copyright. We're not, we're not about getting rid of copyright. We're all copyright lawyers. We're all copyright geeks, and we definitely believe in it. All of our things are tighter than the public domain. You're not giving up all your rights, which is the second one. So we do believe that creators should have the ability to control their rights, but we think creators should have the ability to control their rights. So they should be able to choose themselves how they want to make stuff available. And at the moment, copyright tends to be very heavy default. Default either on really strict, or else you have to give everything up. And we think that creators should be able to say use stuff in between and manage their own stuff without having to employ very expensive lawyers every time they want to have a legally enforceable agreement, license basically. So that's what it's all about. Not anti-copyright. Love creators controlling. It's completely voluntary. It's just for people who do want to share their stuff. It's not anti-commercial. You can actually still make money off Creative Commons stuff, often even under the same business models, but more often under new business models, ones that involve, hyper distribution, putting stuff out there, sort of increasing your value as a product rather than increasing the value of your individual products. So these are the kind of business models that Radiohead, for instance, was using when they put their, whole album out for free. Nine Inch Nails has put their whole album out for free under a Creative Commons license and that kind of thing. And you can still go and buy that album from the shop, but when you buy it, it has a little Creative Commons license on it, the Nine Inch Nails one. So it's a standard business model, but they've decided to put the Creative Commons license on it to take advantage of the possibilities of the internet, and because they like remix. They've created this whole really vibrant community. There's a website and stuff that you can go to where you see how people have remixed the songs, and people have remixed remixes of the songs and all this kind of thing. It's really cool because that's what they were interested in, and so they've done that. So it's not anti-commercial, not so important for you guys, but I always put it in there because it's one thing you hear. And it's not right for every situation. Sometimes full copyright is going to be the most appropriate thing. For instance, big Hollywood films, I suspect, a highly anticipated film and all that kind of thing, I don't know that there will ever really be a situation in which it's really appropriate for that to be Creative Commons licensed under the business model that they use. But the point is that 95% of the stuff, copyright applies to everything. You doodle something on your book and you have copyright in that. So 95% of the things created in the world are not being commercially used in any way, shape or form. And they're not being utilised at all. They're sitting in filing cabinets, they're thrown away straight away and all that kind of thing. And imagine if we could get even a tiny fraction of that stuff out for people to share. One of the really cool things that a lot of people are doing with Creative Commons is putting their junk material out. So, well, not junk material, source materials, or junk material, both. What's it called? Outfoxed. Do people remember the documentary criticising Fox News Network? It was a few years ago. It's kind of Michael Moore-ish type thing, bit of a hit. And they put all of their original interviews and stuff out under Creative Commons licenses. They were like, we've made the film and, we're making money off that and, all of our costs are being recouped. So, and we're not going to use this. We're just going to throw this stuff out if we don't put it out there. So we'll put it out there and let other people criticise Fox. Yay! And let people make their own documentaries and stuff. And so that's material that you guys can use in the classroom. You guys can get your kids to make a documentary about, modern media using footage from Outfoxed because they've said you can. So it's cool. Okay.